just because I spent a number of years working in Myanmar, and the work that you do, if you come from the West, or even if you come from Thailand, for example, to Myanmar, the work that you do is going to be development focused, because that is a developing country or a third world country. And I keep seeing media reports the whole time about Myanmar, and I see the United Nations and the European Union and other powers talking endlessly now about Myanmar. But what these institutions are doing, the EU and the UN and so on, they're really just grinding their own axes on human rights agendas that they have. The chances of them doing anything about the situation in Myanmar, where dozens and dozens of perfectly innocent people are being shot randomly in a campaign of terror at the moment by the administration, the chances of those international power blocks doing anything about the situation in Myanmar are absolutely zero. On the contrary, those groupings of power are using the situation in Myanmar in order to reinforce their Rohingya Islamic fundamentalist human rights agenda. Okay, and so when I see these reports and I see speeches at the UN and the EU, and these bureaucrats who are there, they can't even pronounce the names of people or the names of places in Myanmar, because ostensibly they've got no idea who those people really are, or where it is, or how life could be, or what life might be like, or what the background is of the situation in Myanmar. But I mean, having worked there in Yangon, the commercial hub of the country, and also been on trips throughout the countryside, work-related trips, and having worked very closely with many individuals in Myanmar at different levels of responsibility, what remains very clear to one is that those are actually humans with aspirations, with a desire to open their country to the world, with a desire to exchange and a desire to develop prosperity and democracy. So talking about the whole situation in Myanmar by Western media in order to boost the so-called Rohingya agenda, and also which is itself an extremely complex question which has been boiled down to a ridiculous label by the Western world, like all of the ridiculous labels, like now I'm a gay community or a black community, and therefore I don't vote for Donald Trump. Well, I certainly didn't, but makes no difference. You're not a community, you're a human being with a life and a family and loved ones and challenges and a job, or you used to have a job in the case of Myanmar now. So it's not great just to label you as some kind of pawn or some kind of nationalist Buddhist in the context of a political standoff between the West and China. Where does that lead us strategically? In the meantime, people are scared to go out of their houses in Myanmar. People are scared to remain in their houses in Myanmar, as the army has 24-hour access to wherever and whoever it wants. And now, of course, the climate of snitching and the climate of distrust is growing exponentially at the moment. So spare a thought, maybe. Let's spare a thought. God forbid it should be me, of all people, to suggest to other people to spend time spending a thought about somebody as if that would help anything, or as if I had any moral high ground, which I don't. But just maybe let's think for a moment about how we're managing the world, who is in power, who we're putting in power, how they got there, what kind of world would you like to see? Because now the military in Myanmar doesn't like to have its influence reduced because it's democratically voted out. Therefore, it calls it not a COVID, but an election fraud curfew. And now you can be executed on sight for breaking an election fraud curfew. Where are we going in the West? In the Western world, in that regard, there are also curfews in the West during the gross mismanagement of a so-called coronavirus epidemic, which has been mismanaged really as much as possible, and with as much contradiction and enthusiasm to mismanage as possible in the Western world. So have a look now. In the UK, you can now be arrested probably for even suggesting that a curfew is inappropriate. So let's have a look at where we are now in terms of democracy in the world, because we are regressing now at light speed with the near stopping of global travel now, and the parochialization, mutual propaganda, slagging matches, China forcing propaganda about the dirty Western countries who are brought to COVID on themselves, forcing that propaganda onto Southeast Asian countries that suck up to it, and the West putting out its anti-Chinese propaganda constantly. Think about where we're headed in terms of a parochial Dark Ages world. Thank you very much.